Hi Booktube, it's Amy. I'm here to talk about The Captive and the Fugitive, the 5th volume of Proust's book In Search of Lost Time. And I thought I would slip in one last video for the year with my tree. I've actually got a couple of additional ornaments on here, including this lovely pink ball right there, which is mine, but it was with my parents' Christmas decorations. And when I went home for Christmas this year, my mom told me to pick my ornaments off the tree before I left, as it was time for them to come to my own tree in my own home. So I've got this lovely pink ball here and a couple of other small ornaments on my tree. And it's lovely to have those here on my own tree before I go ahead and take this down. I think I'm going to take down this tree either on New Year's Day, which, I mean, by the time you see this, if I took it down on New Year's Day, the tree will be down, or I'm going to take it down this coming weekend. So Proust. I did indeed take volume 5 of Proust with me on my vacation, and I read through all roughly 950 pages of this volume. I've read the other previous 4 volumes of Proust and I've greatly enjoyed them, but this is the first volume where I found my interest waning. It was almost painful to get through, and I don't like to say that. It's interesting because the Goodreads reviews for this volume are roughly the same as the previous volumes, and yet I found this one quite painful to get through, mainly because our narrator has become insufferable. He is no longer the almost cute, adventurous boy we get in the first volume, or the coming-of-age young man we see in the other volumes, the young man discovering society. Instead, he is, I guess, in his early to mid-20s at this point, I would guess, and he has become an insufferable human being who is, frankly, abusing his mistress, his girlfriend. Not physically, but definitely, emotionally. At this point, at the beginning of this volume, Albertine, who we met a few volumes previously, has entered into a relationship with him, and she moves into his mother's house with him. His mother is away, so it's essentially just him and Albertine and the servants. That's essentially it. And he doesn't want anyone to know that Albertine is there, partly for her reputation, or his reputation, I suppose, but mainly because he has become insanely jealous. And he's afraid that if anyone knows she is there, they will come and see her. He wants to keep her completely hidden from the world. His jealousy extends to never allowing her to go anywhere without an escort. In fact, he takes into his confidence Albertine's friend Andre, who he contemplated having an affair with several volumes back, but never did. He takes Andre into his confidence and uses Andre as a sort of chaperone for Albertine. And despite having someone with her 24/7 or keeping her locked in his house, essentially, he is still insanely jealous, and he believes that she is sneaking around with someone. And he comes to the discovery, or the opinion, or the realization, perhaps. It's difficult to know for sure because Albertine is sort of elusive. We have this idea of who Albertine is through his eyes, but Albertine quickly evolves, quickly changes. She is almost, I don't know how to describe it. I wrote it in my notes here. She is, I had the perfect description of it. oh, I can't find it now, but she unravels. Our narrator unravels Albertine throughout this volume. Who we believe she is at the beginning of this volume is not who we believe she is at the end, but it's all the narrator's perception, all his own beliefs. So we're left with not really knowing who Albertine was. Was she actually cheating on him? Was she in love with him? Was she simply with him for the money? Was she sneaking around with other men? Was she sneaking around with women? Did she have female lovers? Was she in fact a lesbian who is just using him for his money? We're left, sort of wondering. We have his perception, but it's hard to know for sure because Albertine ends up being just this very elusive character. And Albertine, she's very interesting, but just hundreds and hundreds of pages of the narrator's intense jealousy and his emotionally abusive behavior is a little bit much, and it does get a little bit tiresome. So in some ways, I'm glad to be done this volume. I'm glad to be moving on to the final volume, Time Regained, which I'm assuming is going to bring this entire gigantic work all together and wrap it up and bring some ideas together finally. There are definitely ideas that follow throughout the volumes. So for instance, the idea that our narrator is imitating or repeating the mistakes, the mistakes and the life of Swan, who he knew in his childhood. The idea that he is constantly trying to rebuild the safety and security and the love he felt for his mother as a child through each relationship. He is constantly comparing the kisses that he receives and the intimate moments he has with the women in his life to this one night at Cambrai when his mother forgot to kiss him goodnight and he was so anxious he couldn't sleep. He is constantly returning to that scene, to that emotion, and drawing parallels and comparing it, or in some cases subtly alluding to it in his relationships with other people later in life. So for instance, page 140 here, in talking to us about Albertine, he says, "It was no longer the peace of my mother's kiss at Cambrai that I felt when I was with Albertine on these evenings, but on the contrary, the anguish of those on which my mother scarcely bade me good night, or even did not come up to my room at all, either because she was cross with me or was kept downstairs by guests." On the next page, he says, "Every minute brought me nearer to Albertine's good night, which at length she said, but that evening kiss, from which she herself was absent and which made no impression on me, left me anxious that, with a throbbing heart, I watched her make her way to the door, thinking, if I'm to find a pretext for calling her back, keeping her here, making peace with her, I must be quick." And so our narrator has these very tumultuous emotions. Sometimes he is, in that happy place, so to speak, that content, loved place where he is as secure in Albertine's love as he felt in his mother's love. And other times he feels as though she is cold and not even there. And then perhaps a little bit on the horrifying side of things, there are some passages where he describes not being able to stand being with her when she is awake and conscious. There are a couple of passages where he describes her at her most perfect. He loves her most when she is asleep, when she is unconscious beside him in the bed, as opposed to awake and talking and animated and a person. So you really get the sense that this narrator is not in love with Albertine for who she is. He is in love with the way she looks, with the idea of her. And he goes through this back and forth throughout this volume where he doesn't want to be with her anymore. He is telling himself he's going to end it all. He really wants to go to Venice. She is keeping him from Venice because obviously he can't go to Venice if he has to keep an eye on her all the time and make sure that she's not, sneaking off with someone or doing something that he believes she shouldn't. So he's saying, I don't want to be with her. I don't love her. But he's even more horrified, more disturbed by the thought that if he lets her go, then she is going to be with someone else. He's got this mentality of, I don't really want her, but the only thing worse than being stuck with her is having to watch somebody else have her, of seeing her love someone else. And so it's just this very mixed up, infuriating narrator. And I think I'm going to leave my thoughts on this volume here. One more point. This is the volume where at one point near the end, I kind of went, oh, so everybody's gay. So the narrator kind of made these reveals at the end, she's gay, she's gay, she's gay, oh, and he's gay. And of course, this guy we've known all along is gay. So that's kind of the tone of the end of this volume. But as I said, I'll leave it here for now, and I'll be back maybe sometime in January when I start reading Time Regained. And I'll probably do a couple of videos for Time Regained just because it is the last volume, and hopefully I won't be infuriated with it as I was with this volume. I've only done one video on this volume. One, because I was on vacation and wasn't in a position to film, and two, because I was so infuriated with the content that I sort of binge read in an effort to get through some of this material that was infuriating me and also boring me at the same time. If you've read this volume, let me know what you think. Is it the worst volume of the bunch, or is it inexplicably, to me, your favorite volume? Let me know in the comments below.